Okay, so holidays, right? Like there's supposed to be this magical time, but let's face it, sometimes they can be a little bit, well, stressful.
Oh, yeah.
So we thought, why not dive deep into holiday stress-free solutions, a survival guide to thriving during the festive season, to see if maybe there are some secrets to actually enjoying this time of year.
Absolutely. And I think what's really cool about this guide is that it really tackles holiday stress from all those different angles, right? It's not just about the money or just about the lack of time. It's how they all kind of connect, you know?
Oh, totally. Like how the finances can lead to you, like trying to do everything yourself last minute because you can't afford to buy all the fancy gifts.
Exactly. And then that leads to you being totally exhausted and stressed, which of course affects how you interact with your family and your friends. It's like this whole domino effect.
Yeah, totally. But I like that this guide doesn't just like point out the problems. It actually dives into solutions, right?
Yeah.
Which is really helpful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Like let's start with maybe the big one for a lot of people, budgeting and gift giving. What what are some of the things this guide suggests?
Well, one thing that really stood out to me was this idea of planning ahead, like way ahead. We're talking like November.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
November.
Yeah, like sit down with your calendar and actually map out all the events, all the gatherings, before you commit to anything.
I see. That way you know what you're getting into.
Exactly. And that way you can actually see where those potential time crunches might be or those budget busters and make conscious choices about what you really want to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So instead of just like blindly saying yes to everything and then freaking out later.
Exactly. And the guide also encourages thinking beyond just material gifts, like focusing on experiences or quality time, like maybe baking cookies together instead of buying another sweater.
Yeah, no, that's great advice because sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in that whole like consumerism frenzy.
Yeah.
Like who needs another pair of socks, right? Okay, but speaking of feeling overwhelmed, which definitely happens when you're trying to do everything at once, the guide also talks about organizational tips,
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure. And it's really practical stuff too, lists, prioritizing tasks, maybe even using a color-coded calendar to
Yeah.
break down all those different things you got to do. It also talks a lot about building in buffer time.
Oh, buffer time.
Mm,
Because something will always come up.
exactly. Life happens. You think you have it all planned out and then bam, the kids are sick or the dog eats the turkey.
Yeah, been there. Okay, so we've talked about budgeting, we've talked about organization, but there's one more thing that's super important, especially during the holidays, self-care.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get burned out this time of year.
Totally. So what does the guide have to say about avoiding that?
Well, it emphasizes that self-care it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. So it encourages actually scheduling time for activities that you genuinely enjoy, even if it's just like 15 minutes of reading or taking a bath and actually sticking to it. And of course, sleep. Sleep is so important. And incorporating mindfulness techniques to manage that stress.
I love that because it's so true. It's like, how can you possibly give to others if you're running on empty yourself?
Right, it's that whole oxygen mask analogy, right? You
Exactly.
got to take care of yourself first.
Exactly. And then everyone wins. Okay. Now, I also wanted to touch on something else the guide mentioned, and I thought this was really cool, DIY gift ideas. Like, what do you think the connection is there to having a stress-free holiday?
Oh, it's brilliant actually because obviously it can be a budget-friendly alternative,
Yeah.
right? But I think it's more than that. It's about creating something personal and thoughtful, something that really comes from the heart.
Oh, for sure. Instead of just like grabbing something generic off a shelf.
Right. And the act of creating itself, whether it's baking those cookies or crafting or whatever it is, it can actually be really therapeutic. It takes your mind off all the craziness.
Yeah, it's almost like mindfulness, right? You're
Yeah.
you're in the moment. You're
Yeah.
focusing on what you're creating. It's not about all the to-dos.
Exactly. And you're actually enjoying it.
Exactly. You're turning what could be a chore
Yeah.
into something enjoyable. Okay, now, last but not least, let's talk boundaries
Yeah.
because I feel like this is something that's really hard for people, especially during the holidays.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what kind of advice does this guide offer on setting boundaries?
Well, it really emphasizes being clear and honest, with your friends and your family about your limits, like what you can handle and what you can't.
Right.
And it's okay to say no, right?
Right.
You don't have to do everything.
Like, no, I'm not going to bake 12 different types of cookies this year.
Exactly. And it's also about making sure that you carve out that time for yourself, even if it's just, an hour here or there.
So important because, I think sometimes we feel like saying no or setting those boundaries makes us like selfish or something, but it's actually the opposite, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's self-preservation.
Totally. It's about protecting your own well-being so that you can actually show up for the people you care about.
Exactly. And be present and be joyful and all those things that the holidays are supposed to be about.
Exactly.
Okay, so I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. I mean, this holiday stress-free solutions guide it's pretty comprehensive.
Oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It really tackles all the big things.
So I guess just to wrap things up,
Hmm.
what's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think, the holidays at their core are about connection,
Right.
right? And meaning. And by using some of these tips, these strategies that we talked about, you can actually prioritize what truly matters and create an experience that's actually joyful, and not just this whirlwind of
Yeah,
stress.
that's it. That's the dream.
Exactly.
And I love that this guide gives you like the practical steps to actually make that happen. So
That's right.
so yeah, definitely encourage everyone to check it out, see, what resonates with you, what you can apply to your own life. I mean, even if you just take one or two of these ideas and really implement them,
That's a great start.
that's a great start. It could make a world of difference. So yeah, a little pre-holiday self-care, a little planning
Goes a long way.
goes a long way. All right, well, happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.